Hey, hi, good morning, everyone. Welcome to the Illinois Returning Residents
Good
Theme Talk.
morning.
Excuse me?
I said good morning.
Oh, good morning. I just want to make sure you could hear me, actually. So, today we're going to talk about our NOFO for the open areas in Mount Sterling and Vienna. Next slide, please. So I'd like to just start off by introducing our presenters today, as well as our support team. We have Larry Dawson, who's the CJA Northern Regional Administrator, Nate Keener, who is the CJA Central Regional Administrator, and myself, Michelle Cerruti. I'm the CJA Southern Regional Administrator. We also have on the call today our support team, Dwayne Owens, he's the vocational coordinator, career and technical education for Illinois Department of Corrections. We have Diana Fuller, who's our CJA division manager at DCEO. We have Maureen Grossenheider, who will be the grant manager for that program, and Devin Day and Todd Rusk with CDAC supporting us today. I would also really like for you all to please put your names and your contact information in the chat box. We're going to have a get to know you activity at the end of today's session. So we really want you to be able to connect with each other. Next slide, please. So just some housekeeping. Please stay muted during the presentation. Feel free to ask questions in the chat. Or raise your hand. We'll monitor and answer questions as they come in when we can. And we will have a few minutes for questions at the end as well. And we will be recording this presentation and posting it on our NOFO webpage. And any questions not answered during the session will be addressed later through a Q&A process. Next slide, please. So as you can see, this is the third round of funding in an effort to fill all returning resident programs. So we've learned a lot from the successful and unsuccessful applications we've received over the past months. And so we've decided to focus this presentation on the keys to successfully applying. And these will include resource tips. I do want to note that the deadline will be 60 days after the release date, which should be happening any time. We will not have a bidders conference because we have already done that. So we will share our link to our previous bidders conferences that were recorded at the end of this presentation. And just realize that the purpose of this session is to really help you all understand how to develop teams, the importance of partnerships, and provide application resources for you. This session today is not a deep dive into the NOFO, but we do have recordings from previous sessions where you can see a deeper dive. Next slide, please. So since today is all about networking and building partnerships in that spirit, I'm going to be going over some key program highlights and considerations to assist you with developing your proposal and building your team. So we highly encourage you to participate in all the polls and our Jamboard session that's going to be held later, because we will be using all of this data from these activities. So the first thing we're going to do is take our first poll. How would you describe your organization's status or interest in the Returning Residents program? So take a few minutes to please answer that poll. Just going to give it a few more minutes. We're at a little over 50%. Okay, we would love everyone's participation. Okay. So we are at 64%. So again, it looks like my organization is attending to learn more. So shall we stop sharing that poll now? Looks like we're at 64%. Okay. I still see it. Maybe it's just on my screen. Is the poll still up for everybody? The results?
I thought I stopped sharing the poll results.
Should be
Okay.
able to just close it out.
Okay, it was just me. Sorry.
Okay. So you ready to go back to the slide deck?
That would be great.
Okay.
Okay. So let's go to the next slide. So today's event, again, it's all about networking, building partnerships. And so I am going to go over some program highlights. Next slide, please. We have a lot to cover today, so I'm only going to touch on some of the important elements, the more important, they're all important, but some of the most important elements that you really need to pay attention to. And I do want to let you all know about program entry. So applicant teams will use applications and assessments that are provided by the Department of Corrections to assist their candidates in entering their program. And Department of Corrections will provide a list of those who can apply. So intake will include a simple application, an interview, and coaching sessions. And there's a great deal of detail in the NOFO about everything that happens at program entry. I also want to highlight how important employer engagement is. So applicant teams must indicate how they will encourage and engage with clean energy employers to facilitate job placement for participants. So remember, you really need to identify the region that you plan to serve where the returning residents will be released, and start working and finding employer partners. Competitive applications will demonstrate existing relationships with clean energy employers through letters of support or memorandums of understanding. So we're really looking for those so that we know that you do have a commitment with employers and employer associations. So employment engagement activities would be like communicating regularly with employers about hiring needs and program graduates and who will soon be released, and other program engagement opportunities. I also really want to highlight transition services. So applicant teams will be assisting participants in transitioning to clean energy jobs and or advanced training opportunities, if that's what the individual chooses, by providing transition services while participants are still incarcerated and after release. So transition services may include a career assessment, the creation of an individual career plan, mock interviewing, application preparation, resume writing, job search, and placement services. And applicant teams may offer transition services themselves or refer participants to their to nearest partners, like such as their workforce hubs, their climate work centers, or if those are not in a close proximity, also just a reminder to partner with your Illinois WorkNet Center, which is also called the American Job Centers for Workforce Services. One more highlight, I do want to mention equity. Just a reminder, applicant teams must describe how the core equity values that are defined in the NOFO will infuse all of the program elements of their program delivery. An equity-focused program culture should include, at a minimum, involving justice-impacted individuals in shaping the design and delivery of the proposed program, creating a welcoming, inclusive environment within a correctional setting, and empowering participants to succeed by identifying and leveraging their strengths, creating a sense of belonging for returning residents in the clean energy industry, and making sure that training and support services are accessible and equitably delivered. Next slide, please. I do want to mention the Clean Jobs Curriculum Framework. Be sure to really review this in depthly. The Bridge program that will be provided, the Bridge curriculum will help participants become more broadly employable by offering employability skills training as well as clean energy basics. A Bridge program will lead students to obtain at a minimum an OSHA 10 and a first aid CPR certificate. Then after the Bridge program, students will enter their job-specific training. And this is all outlined in that Clean Jobs Curriculum Framework for returning residents. Next slide, please. So Clean Energy Basics curriculum covers a wide range of technical skills that are broadly applicable to construction and maintenance jobs, and these could be solar jobs, wind energy, electrician jobs, energy efficiency jobs. And this is why it's very important to connect with those employers where you're planning to serve, where your returning residents will be released, so you can find out what employment opportunities in clean energy are happening in that community. Next slide, please. So also keep in mind some residential activities or jobs like in solar and HVAC may be a little more challenging, not impossible, but it could be more challenging for returning residents. They may need driver's license, ability to travel in a wide geographic territory. Sometimes there's parole restrictions. Some companies may have policies or practices that exclude returning residents from entering residential properties. So be sure and check out all of that information as well as it pertains to the training you're choosing. And next slide. So the framework is just that. It's just a framework, and it's intended to be used as a set of guidelines, standards, and minimum requirements for curricula offered by training providers of the Returning Residents Clean Jobs program. So as such, the framework outlines the overall program objectives and the content and certification, and provides recommendations and guidelines for how the curriculum should be taught, but it is not intended to be a detailed curriculum. Next slide, please. So I'd also like to highlight the supportive services for participants, and this chart represents many of the support services that are available through CJA. The first available supports are available during the training, and some are only relative once the participant leaves the facility and rejoins their community of choice, but like most wraparound and transition supports do. So this variety of services is designed to provide participants with the best possible chance of succeeding, both during and after the training as they pursue their careers. So really consider including funding for some supportive services, and be sure to also partner with your local workforce hubs as where they will be released. Next slide, please. So we thought this slide would be helpful to provide a reminder of what to think about when identifying and building partnerships. These are ideas of relationships that you might want to consider. You might want to connect with the returning residents to the resources they need. Each box can represent potential partnerships. So really think about the social service programs available in the community that you plan to serve. Connect with small business development centers for potential entrepreneurial pursuits. And also think about connecting to your American Job Centers in the area where you plan to serve. They have a lot of many workforce services that can also assist returning residents in becoming employed. So now we're going to provide you some more information about the specific facilities. And I'm going to turn this over to Nate Keener, my colleague, who's going to start talking about that.
Awesome. Thanks, Michelle. Like Michelle mentioned, we wanted to provide some details about the actual facilities that are part of this NOFO opportunity. Obviously, working in a Department of Corrections facility with all the security requirements is going to be important for you to know some on-ground details so you can adequately plan for your operations within these facilities. So as Michelle mentioned, the two locations, the two facilities that we're soliciting applications for in this second round are the Vienna Correctional Facility and the Western Correctional Facility in Mount Sterling. So next slide, please. So here you see some details about the Vienna Correctional Center. It's located in Vienna. It's a minimum security men's facility. As of the end of this summer, it had a population of 713. There are a couple of rooms the selected grantee may use for training. Room 128 is the larger of the rooms. Both rooms have a closet and tool cribs. Tools left behind for storage must be secured in one of the storage cribs or closets. Tool control procedures must be followed. Computers are allowable, but internet will not be an option for the foreseeable future, so best to have material that does not require internet. Be prepared to bring everything you need for instruction. Next slide, please. Here you can see some data about releases from Vienna in 2023. The bulk of returning residents were released to the Chicago area, but a nearly equal number were released to Southern Illinois. So almost 2/3 of the people released from Vienna in 2023 went to either Chicago or Southern Illinois. So we want you to kind of think about these release scenarios to see if that gives you any ideas on what geographic distribution your grant team, your partners might have. Would it make sense to focus on finding partners in these regions where 2/3 of the people are being released, right? So yeah, next slide, please. So you as the applicant, if you're awarded the grant, will be coming into a facility that already offers some programming to the people housed there. So here you see the academic and vocational offerings currently in place in Vienna. There are already some academic and vocational programs being offered there, a couple of which may have relevance to what you may be teaching, right? So particularly construction or job preparedness. Next slide. So now moving on to the Western Illinois Correctional Center. It's located in Mount Sterling. It's a medium security men's facility. As of this summer, it had a population of 1,442. There again are a couple of rooms the selected grantee may use for training. One room is a large lab, and it's 66 by 48 with an office that's 6 by 8. The other room is a vocational room, and it's 30 by 37. Both rooms have a tool room or closet. And again, tool control procedures must be followed. Next slide, please. And again, looking at the releases from the Western Illinois facility in 2023, again, the bulk of the returning residents were released to the Chicago area. Over 60% were released to that region. Another 21% were released to the broader Northern Illinois region. So over 80% of the releases in 2023 were sent to the northern part of Illinois. So again, does that information give you any ideas on what your grant team, the partners might look like? And next slide. And then again, just some information about the programming that's already going on there to give you an idea if any of these have relevance to what you're teaching. Next slide, please. So now let's talk a little bit more about resources and partners. Next slide. Many of the people on this call have volunteered their contact info. As part of the registration, one of the questions that we asked was, are you comfortable with us sharing this info with other folks who are looking to partner? And so I believe most of the folks who registered for this webinar did select yes. So after after we're done with this webinar, either today or sometime later this week, we'll send out a follow-up email that has these slides and all the links that I'm about to show you. But we'll also attach the registration list of the folks who volunteered their contact information. So you'll be able to reach out to them. If you see people in the chat, we're going to do a Jamboard exercise here later. If you note organizations that, hey, I want to follow up with that person, there's a good chance they'll be on that registration list. And if they're not, feel free to reach out to me or one of the other regional administrators, and we could try to facilitate an introduction. Sometimes people don't want to post their contact information publicly, but that doesn't mean they don't want partners. So we're happy to facilitate introductions as well. Also wanted to draw your attention to this link here, the potential partner list. So this is kind of similar to the registration, but this is a list that goes back 3 years. So since the early days of the CEJA law, we've been collecting contact information from folks who are interested in partnering on a CEJA application. And so that's a pretty large list. You can sort by location to find folks that are in your region or in the specific region you're looking for. So again, that'll be included in this slide deck when we send it back out to you in the follow-up email. Next slide. You might also consider partnering with a local college. Lakeland College provides training at many DOC facilities in the state, or has provided that training in the past, and they may be a good contact for partnership or even just advice. But Lakeland is not the only entity capable of delivering training inside a facility. You might also consider contacting the other community colleges in the region for partnership or info. Shawnee, Southeastern, John A. Logan, and Wren Lake are all in the region near Vienna. And Carl Sandburg, John Wood, Spoon River, and Lincoln Land are all in the relative vicinity of Mount Sterling. None of these are really close, but certainly within the broader region, and might be an option for you to reach out to, again, for partnership or advice. Next slide, please. It's also going to be very important to plug into the CEJA ecosystem. So this map here shows you, it's a pretty busy map, but it shows you all of the DOC facilities that are part of this program, and those are the sort of gray pentagons. It also shows all the Clean Jobs Workforce Network hubs, or the workforce hubs. The workforce hubs are going to be vital partners. The goal for that program will be to prepare people with job training for entry-level jobs in the clean energy industry. As we showed earlier, we have some indication of what regions folks are being released to, but that doesn't necessarily mean we know ahead of time the exact location of the release. So you should plan for how you'll connect your participants with resources after their release. If somebody from Vienna is being released to Central Illinois, there are several CEJA programs in the Central region you could potentially connect them with. If they have additional training to complete, they could enroll in a workforce hub program where they'll get access to the barrier reduction funding. If they've already completed their training, you can work to find community action agencies and other resources to support them while they transition into a job. Remember, the returning resident program does not include barrier reduction funding. So as you think about how you'll help your participants transition out of incarceration, consider adding some support services to your program budget so that you as grantee can support them during that transition. But back to the CEJA programs, you see the orange dots for the workforce hubs, but each orange dot on this map also represents an energy transition navigator tasked with doing outreach to raise awareness about CEJA programs and recruiting people to enroll in them, as well as a clean energy contractor incubator, which will provide training, mentoring, and support to contractors building their businesses, help them connect to projects, compete for capital, and execute clean energy-related project installations and subcontracts. And finally, each region outlined in black will also have a ClimateWorks pre-apprenticeship program to train people in preparation for placement in apprenticeships in the construction and building trades with a focus on the clean energy industry. And you can find the grantees for each of these programs on our CEJA program updates and status page under the section Programs Awarded. So yeah, just really important to start making connections to those other CEJA assets around the state. And the good news is a lot of these are coming online this month and later next month as well. And we'll have a link to the CEJA program updates and status page here in just a moment. Next slide, please. As I mentioned, it might not be so easy to connect a participant to a CEJA program if they're being released in an area that may be far away from a CEJA program. So in those cases, if the participant has additional training needs, you might consider linking up with a local American Job Center. The Workforce Innovation and Opportunity Act, or WIOA, is landmark legislation that is designed to strengthen and improve our nation's public workforce system and help get Americans, including youth and those with significant barriers to employment, into high-quality jobs and careers, and help employers hire and retain skilled workers. WIOA identifies a number of core partners that coordinate together to provide services to eligible individuals in the local one-stop delivery. The one-stop delivery system brings together workforce development, educational, and other human resource services in a seamless, customer-focused service delivery network that enhances access to the program's services and improves long-term employment outcomes for individuals receiving assistance. The American Job Center network is part of that one-stop system and provides universal access to an integrated array of labor exchange services so that workers, job seekers, and employers can find the services they need. The services offered to employers, in addition to referral of job seekers to available job openings, include assistance in developing job order requirements, matching job seeker experience with job requirements and skills, assisting employers with special recruitment needs, arranging job fairs, assisting employers analyze hard-to-fill job orders, assistance with job restructuring, and helping employers deal with layoffs. Job seekers who are veterans receive priority referrals to jobs and training, as well as special employment services and assistance, in many cases including legal services. In addition, the system provides specialized attention and service to individuals with disabilities, migrant and seasonal farm workers, justice-involved individuals, youth, minorities, and older workers. So the Job Center for Elwea number 25 is located in Marion at the Manfred Greater Egypt Building and serves Franklin, Jackson, Jefferson, Williamson, and Perry counties. The American Job Center for Elwea number 26 is in Carmi, the Southern 14 Labor Workforce Investment Board has 11 satellite centers throughout the Southern 14 counties, connecting individuals to local WIOA Title 1B programs. Next slide, please. And the American Job Center for Elwea number 14 is in Quincy and serves Knox, Warren, Henderson, Hancock, McDonough, Adams, Schuyler, Brown, and Pike counties. And this is a link here to their website. Next slide, please. The workforce boards that run the LWEs would be a great asset to connecting your organization with other partner programs such as labor, education, CBOs, economic development agencies, workforce investment Title Act 1 services, and many of the others that you see here, Job Corps, assistance to needy families, Trade Act, NAFTA. So next slide, please. And in the cases where perhaps the participant is already done with training, but you need to help them with their transition, you can also find LWEA area specific resources from social service providers for things like food, utility assistance, personal care and household products, emergency financial assistance, mental health services, and more. Here's the link for resources in the West Central Illinois area. We didn't find an equivalent one for Southern Illinois, but you can also work with the LWEA in that region to find community action agencies in the region. Next slide, please. And on this slide, you can also look into United Way's 211 resource to find social service providers in whatever region you're looking for. We also have a number of links here that we hope you will explore, and I'll just give you a quick synopsis of what each of these has. So the Reentry Resources statewide link, the Illinois Reentry Resources page, that website allows returning residents to locate services in their region. It's a filter page, so you just go to the address and click on the service that you need, enter your zip code, and it'll pop up a list of information about people providing those services or organizations providing those services in that region. So if I use Vienna's zip code of 62995 and filter for, say, food, I'll get a list of providers providing food assistance in that region. The next link there, the Illinois WorkNet Service Finder, works kind of similarly. You put in your zip code or location and what kind of provider you're looking for, and it populates a map with all the contact info. This resource will be mostly for finding American Job Centers and other WIOA partner programs. The next link is the Energy Equity Portal, and that's run by the Illinois Power Agency. And there you'll find employers who have posted clean energy jobs, and it's also where you can post your job seeker information. Equity investment eligible people looking for jobs can post their information there. And everybody participating in CEJA gains the designation of equity investment eligible person. So all your participants should get registered at that site. And employers seeking to hire equity investment eligible individuals can post jobs there. So it's kind of a matchmaking site. And then finally on this slide, the data packets. As part of the regional planning process, DCEO provides a lot of data specific to each region about in-demand jobs, industries, what kinds of jobs and industries are on the rise, which are waning. They've got data in there about demographics, about poverty in the region. So it could be a great resource for planning your application. What kinds of jobs are in demand in the regions across the state, and how does that relate to where your participants are going to be released? Next slide, please. And then additional resources that are kind of specific to information about incarceration in Illinois. So that first link there, the DOC link, you'll find a number of annual reports from and about Department of Corrections and Incarceration in Illinois. The next slide there, or the next link there, the jha.org, provides a ton of information about the actual prison population. So demographics, facility population, changes over time. And then the ICEJA link there, no relation, provides objective analysis of criminal justice data for informing statewide policy and practice. At that website, you'll find about arrest trends, caseloads of the criminal justice system, data about parolees, and a whole host of research done by the ICEJA group. And finally, be sure to check into the CEJA DCEO updates and program status page, where we post all the updates about the programs, links to the NOFOs, information about who's been awarded grants, and et cetera. So probably a good idea to bookmark that page if you're planning to apply for a CEJA grant. All right, next slide, please. And I will take over the screen share. All right, so we're going to do a Jamboard activity here. And I will put the link in the chat. And so what we'd like to do is have folks click the link that I just put in the chat there to the Jamboard. We'd like just one person, if you've got multiple people from your organization here, let's just have one person from each organization participate in this. So the designated person should click on the sticky note that you see here on the side of the screen. So you'll click on the sticky note and you'll write your organization's name. And it'll create a sticky note for you. And then what we want you to do is look at the Jamboard here and let us know which of these best describes your organization. So if I am planning on applying as the lead applicant for Vienna, I'll put my little sticky note right there. And I can pick whatever color I want, describe it however I want, make the note as big or small as I want. Let's make them kind of small. We want to be able to read them, but we've got quite a few people on the call, so let's make sure we got room for everybody. And then if I'm also planning to do some other service like training delivery, I'll create another sticky note and I will put it under training delivery. And again, make it small. So yeah, encourage folks to do that now. There are 5 pages, and so just a heads up, you can't create a sticky note on page 1 and then drag it over to page 2. So you'll have to come over to page 2 and create a new sticky note and put that in the right place. Let's see, any other notes here? So yeah, repeat this for every prompt that describes your organization. Just want to note, let's see. You'll note that equity is not one of the specific roles mentioned here, because equity should be embedded as part of every role and every phase of the grant development. If you don't see your role listed here, go ahead and type it in the chat, or if you have enough space, type it out on a sticky note with your organization's name and add it to the prompt or prompts there on the last page under other services, and then that's divided by region. So we'll just give a couple minutes here. I see quite a few folks in, no sticky notes yet. and just let us know if you're having any trouble with it. It's view only. Oh, okay. Sorry about that. Let's see. All right, let's try that. So that should work. I'll put a new link in the chat just in case. How's that working for folks? I see a lot more people joining. All right, now I see some sticky notes going. Sorry about that, folks. Oh, and I'll mention too that we will, I may need to clean this up a little bit when we're done to make it readable, but when we send out the follow-up, I'll be sure to include screenshots of these of this Jamboard so you can see. And the point of this exercise is, okay, maybe you're a lead organization, you want to apply for the grant, but you don't necessarily have a training provider, or vice versa. Maybe you want to provide training, but you're just not sure how to do the grant application. Maybe you're having trouble finding partners in a region that you're not familiar with. You want to provide the training in the southern region, but a lot of the participants will be released to the Chicago region, and you just don't know too many organizations up there. The point of this exercise is to kind of discover some of that. Who are the organizations from the northern region, and what kind of services do they provide? That will help. Hopefully this exercise will help with that. Maybe you're looking for a reentry organization in the northern region. Well, somebody can post their sticky note here on page 3, and you can reach out to them after this with the contact info we provide, or maybe even just make the connection in the chat. And I'll get rid of mine so we're not clogging that up. Give a couple more minutes on this. And just be sure to scroll over to the other 4 pages here. I see a lot of folks putting their sticky notes under lead applicant, and a lot of folks putting their sticky notes under training, delivery, and support services. I'm not seeing, I see a couple on page 2. So we got some transition services in each region. We got one organization on each of those lines. We've got one reentry organization in the northern region. Do we have any in the central and southern region? Oh, and cool, we're getting populated over on page 4 now too with employer engagement. Awesome, we got a statewide group doing that. Nobody on the 5th page yet. And just a reminder, if you don't see your role or the services you provide listed on the other 4 pages, feel free to use this 5th page to describe what it is that you do and kind of what your role might be in a grant like this. Nobody's signing up to be a lead applicant in Vienna. Is there anybody that is still working on this? Please, if so, please come off mute or mention in the chat. Okay, awesome. Well, so thanks everybody. And yeah, it looks like we've got quite a few folks interested in providing the training. We've got a couple lead applicants for the Mount Sterling area. Nobody wanting to be lead applicant for Vienna. So everybody else on the call, just, that is a possible opportunity for you. And would encourage you to examine that. Be sure to take note if you see anybody here who might be a good partner for your organization. And then, like we said, feel free to ping them in the chat, or we'll send out the contact info to the group after this session. Like I mentioned, I'll clean this up so that you all can make sure it's readable for all, and we'll just send it out as a PDF. So cool. Now, I want to introduce Larry Dawson. He's the CJA Northern Regional Administrator, and he's going to talk to you about preparing a strong application. Take it away, Larry.
All right, thanks, Nate. And good morning again, everybody. You've heard about already the returning residence program elements, basics about other CJA programs, and information about the specific correctional institutions that are connected to today's grant opportunities. Now let's shift our focus a bit to applying for these grants with some tips for success. Next slide, please. So we cannot stress enough the importance of fully reading the Notice of Funding Opportunity, which we call our NOFO, and reading it very carefully. The Notice of Funding Opportunity contains important information about the expected activities, eligibility criteria, and documents and organizational data needed from the prospective partners. And be sure that you understand all of the requirements that are listed in the NOFO. Now, also, we ask that you please not wait until the deadline to apply to avoid any potential technical difficulties, because we've had a number of situations where folks will be trying to submit their application, at 4:55, and the application's due at 5 o'clock. And, internet things can happen, and we don't want that to derail your best plans and all the time that you put into submitting these applications. So please work to try to get the applications submitted as early as possible. Also, it's highly recommended that you participate in any of the technical assistance trainings that are offered, because there's a lot of good information there as well. Next slide. Also, make sure that your organization and or your team is a good fit for the purpose of the NOFO. Got to ask yourself questions like, does this opportunity align well with what your organization's mission and capabilities are? Do you have the capacity to administer this grant in addition to other initiatives that you may be working on right now as well? Are there other organizations that you can partner with to strengthen that application? And you've heard a little bit before today about partnership, and the exercise that you just participated in, the Jamboard, was partially intended to provide you an opportunity as you're doing your own self-reflection of your organization to identify other organizations that you may be able to plug into your application to maybe fill gaps in your organization's capabilities to ultimately make your application strong. Next slide. So on strong applications, strong proposals, ensure that you're responding specifically to the requirements in the NOFO. Again, understand the definitions and the type of training and the services required. Don't make up any of your own definitions, terms for the people that you'll serve, or the type of training that you'll deliver. Make sure that you refer to the definitions that are listed in the NOFO. Your program design should strongly align with the program description and structure. And the review criteria should guide your proposal development. So this is not a, I guess a creative writing exercise, but ensure that you're responding specifically to the requirements in the application, along with the application format that is required by this NOFO. And that will give you, in your application, the best chances for success. But with all that, ensure that you're also telling your story. Highlight the strengths of your team. Make a case for how your project and its potential impact should be awarded this grant. Next slide. So then what does a complete application package look like? We have it all laid out here. The uniform grant application in its fillable PDF format should make it easy for you to get the information easily entered. The uniform budget utilizing a template provided by a DCEO. We've got feedback from a number of reviewers that there are things missing in the budget documentation. So make sure you double check that to make sure that your budgets are complete and well thought through. Any conflict of interest disclosure is necessary to ensure that your application can go through. Mandatory disclosure, the technical proposal, which breaks out all the detail for how you plan to execute. It also talks about your staffing and information about your partners, if you have. And finally, the supplemental project documents, which are all the attachments that you will be submitting along with your application. Next slide. And then let's look a little bit more into, after you submit that application, what happens at DCEO. Next slide. The first part is the initial administrative review. And all applicants go through the administrative review process. And if you fail in this step, your application will not advance on to the merit review stage. So it's important that you have all that you check to ensure you got all of the required elements of the application package. Also key that you're GATA pre-qualified and that you're an eligible applicant, and those eligibility, the eligibility definition is available for you in that NOFO, and it lays it out. And ensure, as I spoke about a couple of slides ago, ensure that you turn your application in on time. Now, out of fairness to all the applicants, DCEO does not accept any applications beyond the due date and beyond the due date time. So ensure that you get those in as soon as it's ready and before that application due date. Next slide. Now, one of the things that has occurred too that we've seen is we've had some folks submit inadvertently some blank templates. And so as you are working with your application group on providing this information, ensure that you're using good file management and naming conventions if you have multiple versions of a document, so that the correct ones are the ones that are submitted with your application. Be sure to name them properly and make sure that you're aligning any changes that you're making to your documentation with the requirements of the NOFO, and paying attention to all of the materials that you're using. If you're using some language from a previous grant that you've applied for, make sure to scrub out all the references to that other grant so that it doesn't confuse the merit reviewers. And also, if you have different staff working on different elements, make sure that, any book that has multiple authors, you have to make that final review to make sure it's all still tied together, and try not to repeat and overlap things. Next slide. Now, after your proposal passes the administration review, which hopefully it will then enter the merit review process. And we typically have at least 3 reviewers who review those applications that pass the administrative review. The highest scoring applications for each region or each institution, in this case, is the one that is at least that they have to meet the minimum score threshold, and the highest among those is the one that will be selected. and as we think through the specific process, excuse me, it's important for you to know that as we determine who the merit reviewers will be, that we provide them training and a rubric with which to do the scoring. They fill out their score sheets and provide any comments about them. The team all comes together of the scorers, and they discuss their scores, and if any adjustments are needed to be made, that is made during that time. And then the final review scores for each applicant are then combined into that composite score that I spoke about. And again, the highest score, as long as it meets that minimum score threshold, is the one that will be chosen as the finalist for a particular grant. Next slide. So now let's take a look at characteristics of successful applications, as well as some common weaknesses to try to avoid. Next slide. So the areas of strength in successful applications. We really want to hammer these points because we want to try to ensure that all the time that you all put into your applications is well spent to ensure that they at least get to the merit review process and then ultimately are successful at getting awarded the grant. So we want to ensure that you're detailing your staff descriptions, demonstrating that you've got staff with lived experiences working with justice-involved individuals, that you also have detailed plans on how you will be tracking the program outcomes, followed by descriptions of your experiences in workforce development, and also including a strong, clear description of the project plan and training program that you would like to utilize. When it comes back to staffing, we want to ensure that you're detailing the personnel that you plan to use into the specific key positions. And even if you haven't actually brought them on yet because you haven't been awarded the grant yet, you want to identify for those positions that you don't have hired yet, the full job description and any positions that are already hired versus ones that you will be hiring after you're awarded the grant. And all of that is supposed to flow into a detailed, itemized budget that justifies, with the justification narrative that identifies how you plan to spend the grant funds and where within your activities. Next. And then we want to try to as much as possible, include relevant details to highlight how your organization's experiences in delivering similar services can be leveraged in this program. So we want to try to ensure that the clean energy curriculum that we've outlined for you and your execution of it is well described, and you want to describe any connections to future career paths within your documentation as well. The more detail about the curriculum that you're using, and also provide the narrative that describes how other programs, how you'll be interfacing with other programs that are already being offered at IDOC. And it's also important too, and we've seen this in a number of occasions, that you follow the Clean Jobs Curriculum framework and include the clean energy basics, because ultimately all of these participants, all of these trainees, once they're released back into the communities, we're hoping for them to be able to take jobs within the clean energy economy. And so it's very important that the basics of clean energy kind of serves as that knowledge base to help them to be able to apply for a number of different jobs. And the Clean Jobs Curriculum framework basically lays it out for you, so you don't have to do a lot of creativity when it comes to laying out your curriculum. And finally, ensuring that you have a detailed plan on how you're going to address participant barriers. So my colleagues, Nate and Michelle, have already spoken a bit about how some barriers and challenges that some of the participants and completers of this training have once they go out and are actually searching for jobs. And so it's important that you have your plan together and the various partners that you have in addressing barriers that some of the participants may have. Things like transportation, getting IDs, in some cases, housing, all these kinds of things the help that the participants need to be in place to ensure their success. Next slide. We keep talking about detail. Just ensure that there is adequate detail described on how you plan to execute your plan. It's important that the plan is reasonable, clear, and well-defined. Don't just enter TBD, to be determined, with no other information. You want to be able to demonstrate that you've thought through all of your staff roles, as well as your plan for filling. Any missing partnerships for required services and limited descriptions are also going to hamper your application. It's relatively rare that one organization is strong in all aspects of the grant requirements. So do an honest self-assessment of your organization's strengths and let that be your guide on whether you need to seek partners. And if so, how to handle which program components those partners will be assigned. And then relationships with potential employers is also critical. Because is this an area where you might also need to consider making additional partnerships? Next slide. Then recruitment plans and budget and cost effectiveness. Again, being clear and well-defined. We want you to also be able to identify how, with other initiatives that you have, or other relationships with CBOs, employers that you have, that you're able to financially leverage other resources and be able to sustain the activities that you have when funding is no longer available. Next slide. Now I'd like to talk a little bit more about some of the resources that you can utilize to help you write a good grant application. Next slide. So here we have the Returning Residents Clean Jobs program homepage. And with all of the CJA grants, we have a updates and status page, which is where our NOFO release link will be. And we have, I believe, the current link may still be available, but that is for the other two correctional institutions that have already had applications submitted for them and had applicants, finalist applications identified. We'll soon be including the link for the newest NOFO, and you'll be able to tell whether it's the most recent version of the NOFO by looking at the deadline date that is listed there. The deadline date for this NOFO will be 60 days after the NOFO is released, which should be some point in November of 2024 should be the deadline date. So whenever you post, whenever we post that NOFO, that link will be there. And if you've also signed up on our mailing list, you'll also be notified the moment that we release that and make it active on the site. Next slide. So in addition to those standard NOFO rollout components, we also have a permanent repository of video resources at our video training and resources page. There you'll find at least 21 training videos on topics like applying for a grant, pre-qualification, which is key, common missteps, budget overview, audits, reporting, the 2 CFR 200 tips, which tells you a lot about the procurement and equipment purchase rules that the state has, and more. Now, we've also posted here in this presentation links to a number of webinars that we've hosted in the past that are specific to certain aspects of grant writing for CJA programs. And we have things like Workforce Grants 101, which is a standard GATA webinar that we've hosted for CJA grants. We also have a qualifications and budget webinar and a rolling back the curtain, what CJA grant reviewers are looking for webinar, which is also, I think, going to be very helpful. And it's also linked here. All these video resources are great for folks who need just a little bit of help with the grant writing process. But you might also consider working with a hired grant writer. Some grant writers are professional and charge for these services. Others are volunteers. But if you're a CBO, considering reaching out to your network to see if anybody has experience with writing grants that may be able to assist you. Next slide. Now, another resource you should check out is our CJA Q&A document. Now, just a word of warning, this document is long. It is basically a catalog of all the questions that we've been asked about all the CJA programs and our responses to those questions. So if somebody emails us a question, we answer it and add it to the list. If they ask us a question at an outreach or networking event such as this, we answer it and we add it to the list. One advantage of applying during this round is your ability to take advantage of all those questions and answers that have been provided previously. So to use it, you probably want to start at the top of the document and use the table of contents to find the program, returning residents in this case, and potentially even the specific topic that you want to explore. So you can click within the table of contents and it'll take you directly to the section of the document that you're looking for. And also, just want to give a little bit of detail on how this process works. If you submit a question to us and we're able to answer it right away, again, we will provide that. Sometimes, though, we have to think about it and discuss with others. And once we have a finalized answer, then we will provide it and it'll go in the Q&A document. And we're working with similar accounting systems and under the same set of state and federal laws. So there will be some overlap between some of the program's rules and questions. So we need to ensure that those other programs agree in how we answer your questions. And our unit has leadership, and that leadership reports to the leadership of our office, who sometimes we will need to actually even pull in other agencies. Like in this case, we have a partnership between the Department of Commerce and Economic Opportunity and the Illinois Department of Corrections. And so we work together to find the very best answers for all of these questions, particularly ones that even span multiple agencies. Next slide. So, back to the slides, just a couple of additional ideas here to keep in mind. If you've applied for a CJA grant in the past and you've been denied, you may request a summary of the feedback from the merit review process. You can simply contact Charlotte Flickinger, who is the program manager, to request that summary. You can also request one-on-one technical assistance from a CJA NOFO coach, and they can help you better understand the NOFO. And this is really where any of those questions that you have that need clarification from the NOFO document can be asked. And they will work with you and on how you can approach the NOFO and hopefully be successful with your application. And of course, keep your eyes open for any additional TA webinars that we may have during the course of the returning residents grant application being open. It's probably a good idea too to reach out, if you haven't already, to community leaders to see what input they can help provide in your application. Next slide. Now here's some info on the CJA NOFO coaching opportunity. We have a QR code here, which if you use your cell phone and you take use your camera here, it will provide a link for you. And if you click that link, it will take you to the page where you can register for a one-on-one TA session with a NOFO coach. And you can sign up for several sessions if you think there's something that you'll need across a couple of different times. And to keep in mind, there's 60 days over this application period, and we want to make sure that there's enough time for everyone who needs time with a coach. So there's a limit of 3 sessions per applicant team. And we can come back to this QA code later if you need to. Next slide. Then here's some insight into what you can expect from those one-on-one sessions, as well as any TA webinars. We can help you to an extent, but we can't tell you, this is a good idea, or keep this, or that's not a good idea, don't include that. We can't say things like, oh yeah, that'll get you points, in a merit review or anything like that. But we can tell you that you're on the right track as far as what the NOFO expects. An application can be completed correctly and still score low, right? So the NOFO coaches and our webinars can help you understand if your application complies. But also, it's up to you and your team to make it good. Next slide. So if you're a returning applicant who has submitted for previous iterations of either this grant or some of the others, who's been kind of engaged in this process for a while, you may have done any or all of these already. But again, the process is we've got the grant writing workshops, of which this is kind of part of that. There's the NOFO review, bidders conference, which this serves kind of as a bidders conference because we're giving you not just the basics of the grant and its requirements, but also some kind of tips and guidance on how to put together your applications and to have them pass administrative review. Provided you access to the Q&A document so that you can find out any questions that have been answered previously, be able to access that one-on-one TA opportunities with a NOFO coach, and ultimately submit that application. So again, it's important that as we maintain this website repository of all these training videos and helpful guidance for you, that you take advantage of that and use any or all of it to help you as you develop your application. And we'll discuss a little bit more about that in a minute, but you can also schedule these one-on-one sessions with a coach. Don't forget that opportunity, because that may be some of the insights you get there, may be that little extra that you need to get your application over the hump. And any questions that you have also, don't forget that you can utilize the ceo.cja@illinois.gov email, and we'll answer those in the public FAQ document or Q&A. Next slide. And now we have another poll question. What are your main challenges in preparing and completing an application in response to the NOFO? And you can enter those responses, I believe, in the chat.
I'm just pulling up the poll right now.
Okay. There we go. There we go. What are your main challenges in preparing and completing an application in response to the NOFO? And you can choose multiple of these responses.
Just wanted to let everyone know there's, depending on how big this appears on your screen, there's a lot of options. So there's, if you can use a scroll bar to see all of the options so you don't miss anything.
It's a great point, Todd. And actually, I'll just read through them. One is assembling a complete team and requiring partnerships, finding a team to join, understanding the overall program requirements, completing the project plan and all required work plan elements, completing the application budget or budget narrative, the correctional center security requirements, limited grant writing experience, limited capacity to complete the application, and also limited capacity to provide the required services. And then there's a response for other, and you can fill in any other challenge that may be experienced in completing an application for this NOFO. Maybe give another minute to make any selections and submit. Okay. All right.
Or anybody who is entering other as an option, feel free to pop that into the chat, what that other might be.
And what are we seeing so far?
Larry, you can just let me know when you're ready to end the poll.
Sure. I think we can end it now.
Okay.
Okay. And so what we've got is the most challenging component. 45% of the respondents have identified is finding a team to join, followed by 36% of the folks said understanding the overall program requirements, and there are many, understandable. And 27% said assembling a complete team and the required partnerships. So doing that review of your organization and its capabilities and identifying partners to help fill in those gaps. And then there's a number of equal 9% for most of the rest, completing the project plan, completing the budget, security requirements, grant writing experience, capacity issues. All 9% of the respondents selected those as well. So one of the key things is, and we'll continue with our various resources to help you to understand fully the program requirements. And also another one of the big ones that folks chose is this whole composing your team. And that's part of the reason why we are including a 60-day period for the application window to be open, to give you adequate time to, one, understand the requirements fully and make those connections with other partners on your applications. And so we're hoping to help you to better facilitate that process to the benefit of your application submission. And thank you for responding. I think we can go back to, I think, the slides there, Todd.
Okay.
Next slide. 3. The next one, I think. There we go. Okay. So now we've gone through several exercises, Jamboards, polls, talked about the programs, kind of tips and tricks for applying. Now we want to hear from you. So if you'd like to either come off mute or you can include any questions that you have in the chat, this is your time. So let's talk. This is an open Q&A period of this session, and feel free to come off mute or to enter your question in the chat, and we can attempt to provide you answers there. Or have we overwhelmed you with information and you don't know exactly what to ask? I noticed in the chat that they had a question, said, will we get a list of the lead applicants for specific regions? And the answer there was, we'll send out the Jamboard that was completed earlier, where people identified themselves as lead applicants, but we won't know, obviously, who the potential lead applicants are, who may be out there, but didn't attend the call or participate in the Jamboard. So we'll provide the information that we have so you can identify partners appropriately. Any other questions?
Yes, hi Larry. This is Carlos Lloyd from Harley Human Care Services. That was my question, and I think just based off the poll results from the poll number 2, is that I think a lot of applicants that's on this call or potential applicants is looking to partner with other organizations based off the correctional institution locations.
Mm-hmm.
I'm in the I'm in the Cook County area, and my program serves all of Cook County, and going into an institution, is really outside our capacity, but far as the participant barriers, finding jobs and things like that, that's what we specialize in.
Mm-hmm.
I run one of the very first drug diversion programs across the nation, where it's not a plea agreement program, but it's a pre plea agreement where we service individuals that's just as involved with drug distribution, and they come through our program and complete the program, and at the end of the program and graduation, they get their record expunged. So, just that's our specialty in the northern Cook area and all of Cook County. So I think basically for me with that question is just looking to see who I could partner with that's going to actually apply for those institutions, and see if we can, sustain some type of framework or business model that we can be successful in applying for this grant.
Great. Thank you, Carlos.
And Carlos, did you put your organization name and contact info in the chat already?
No, I'll do it again now, but I was on part of it. Let me do that now. I was on my phone earlier today, now I'm on my laptop, so let me do it now. Oh, thank you.
Yeah, I think that's a great outcome of this, is like, hey, this is what I do. I'm in the northern region. We do reentry services, like hit me up. I think that's an awesome outcome of this exercise.
Absolutely.
Yeah, and I would add, if I can, Nate and Larry, those slides that you shared that have the geographic distribution of reentry, I think that in some ways our perception might be that this grant is, geographically located where these facilities are. But that's not necessarily true, because returning residents will be returning to all over the state of Illinois.
Right.
So for those lead applicants who might be co-located where the facilities are, hear what Carlos is saying and what other organizations are saying, where you can create a partnership and have people on the ground where returning residents are likely to go once they're released.
It's good suggestions, Devin.
Larry, if I could add that one of the questions when everybody registered was about whether they were willing to share their information. So, we have registration information, and I think some of this other information from the presentation that we can share. Obviously, we're not sharing information with people who didn't give permission, but for those who did give permission, I believe there's an intention to share with the intent of supporting some of these teaming and partnerships.
Absolutely. Thank you, Todd. And I believe, I think we had somewhere in the area at its highest, maybe 35 participants today, but I think we had something in north of 80 registrants who were interested in these grants. And so many of those people, as Todd mentioned, identified themselves as being willing to and open to partnering. And so, yes, we'll provide that list of those people who chose that they're interested in partnering to all of you so that you can identify folks along with the Jamboard as well to know what specific parts of the process and the grant that folks are interested in doing. Any other questions? Not just questions, commercials. I think Carlos gave a great commercial for his organization. Are there any other organizations that like to come off mute and talk about what it is that you do and your openness to partnering with us? Okay, I'm seeing a few things in the chat. One is about the CEJA Workforce Program. And yes, there will be a NOFO for that as well, for specific areas that are still available. Are there any other questions about returning residence grant? Any other CEJA grants? So you've got myself, Nate, Michelle, the regional administrators. You've got our great grant managers on the line, our division manager. You've got all of the primary CEJA folks all on this call. So it's a great opportunity to get any questions answered. I'm not seeing much more, but we will keep the line open for a while. If folks do still have other questions, because we are looking for applicants for the Vienna Correctional Center, as well as the Western Illinois Correctional Center. And you can refer to the NOFO or NOFO homepage. We'll let you know when that is up and ready and active. That application technical assistance is available. We're going to be giving you 60 days from the time that NOFO is released in which to get that all submitted. And then, don't forget also that we've got a general email box, for CEJA questions that we utilize. It's ceo.ceja or ceo.ceja@illinois.gov. And if you If you're unfamiliar with our web pages, you can just Google even DCO and CEJA and navigate to the CEJA updates and program status page. And that's where you'll be able to find the NOFO release link. I see some folks are entering some information in the chat about their organizations, which I think is a great opportunity to get some info about some potential partners. So if you don't have any questions, but you're still on the line, that may be a good opportunity now to provide that information here in the chat as well. And again, we'll hang on the line for a while if a question comes to you that you like to ask the group assembled. Also, I failed to mention earlier in my name call out shout outs, I mentioned the regional administrators, grant managers, or division manager, but also on the call with us today is our chief partner from the Department of Corrections, who's also here as support for our Q&A session as well. So if there are questions for or about IDOC, now would be a good opportunity to include those as well.
Larry, what was his name again? Sorry about that.
His name is Dwayne Owens.
Mr. Dwayne Owens, quick question. What is your guys' security protocols for an individual with lived experience that might want to enter into one of those correctional institutions?
As far as being part of this program,
Yes.
I mean, that's all part of what we're putting together, the guide. There are rules, regulations, there's training you'll have to go through, there's background checks. So, I mean, we have procedures that are currently being written. We have our procedures already for DOC, but for these programs, they're writing their own guide procedures.
Okay, thank you. So sometimes there might be a little wiggle room here and there because you guys got your own security protocols, but also when they have these programs, you kind of abide by those protocols, or
It'll mirror. You may not be
okay.
held to all the exact same standards as would if you were a Department of Corrections employee, but as far as background checks and what you're allowed to bring in and out of the prison, things like that would be very similar. Yeah, there's some training that overlaps, but not everything would be identical, I guess.
Okay. Thank you,
Yeah,
Dwayne.
if anyone has specific questions, I can try and answer those about procedures or entry or whatever. But yeah, it's I guess a broad topic to cover.
Yeah, I think you're kind of correct like that because I have some individuals on my staff, and if I wanted to serve one of these facilities, have a criminal background, so I just was wondering like what did that screening process pretty much look like?
Yeah, so I
Mhm.
mean, it doesn't eliminate anyone necessarily. It depends on type of sentence, how long it's been, stuff like that. I mean, I could refer specific questions to our background people, so I am the individual that might guide you to. I mean, I have every answer, but I know who to go to if we have specific questions.
Thank you, Dwayne. Appreciate it.
Oh, you're welcome, certainly.
Also wanted to mention some of the folks who've entered their information in the chat. Tara Loza, hopefully I pronounced that correctly, mentioned challenge to change. Justice involved system impacted individuals serving Kane County. Maria Garza, and she included her email and phone number there. Louis Napoleon, included from Linda and Louis Napoleon. We have considerable experience providing workforce development training. We provided services for workforce development, health and human services, veterans affairs, state probation and parole. We're authors of reentry resources used in correctional facilities nationwide and include their homepage here. Ebook, www.ebooksbycrooks.com, it looks like, as well as a job challenge link and a resume link. St. Greta Ladenthan included information. She's a training director. Email here, Greta L at midwesternrenew.org from Midwest Renewable Energy Association, MREA. They're a solar training provider serving the Midwest. And it looks like Louis Napoleon entered. We have conducted job training workshops in correctional facilities, and I have taught GED classes in 2 prisons and as an inmate, and left the telephone number here as 618-834-0056. Okay. It's been 5 minutes or so since the last entry. Are there any other questions or comments, information about you or your organization that you'd like to share with those still on the line? My partners, the other regional administrators or even grant managers on the line, is there anything that you'd like to share for the benefit of the group before we close up? Looks like Maria has also included challenge to change in Aurora, has a housing project for justice involved individuals as well. We'd like to partner with organizations in an effort to provide workforce to our returning residents and those that have been home but have employment hardships due to their criminal backgrounds to obtain sustainable jobs. Please reach out to me and or Tara Loza. Thank you, Maria, for that. Anything else? Just in case, I'll leave the call open for at least another couple minutes in case something question comes up. But for those that don't have any further questions, you can feel free to drop, but we will hold on the line for at least another couple minutes here. Our team members, Gia Suggs says thank you. And I echo that sentiment. Thank you for everybody who's joined the call and is interested in participating in and working in this program. We really appreciate it. We want to try to provide all the resources we can to help you be a successful applicant so that we can work with you to help our returning residents get good jobs in the clean energy economy. With that, I think, team members, I think that we will go ahead and close out this session. We appreciate all of you for attending and your time and attention, and certainly make use of those NOFO coaches and all of the TA resources that have been mentioned during this session. I wish you all a fantastic day. Take care.